Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. And my name is Dan, and today I thought I would do a video all about those midfielders, those cheap-ish midfielders that I think you should buy, basically. Because I know a lot of you guys are selling the likes of Coutinho, Rashford, Sancho, maybe Bailey, maybe Neto, maybe Odegaard, Bernardo Silva. There's so many midfielders that just haven't worked out so far this season, and a lot of people are thinking about making the switch this week. So I'm going to go through who I believe to be the 6 best midfielders at 7 million or less. We're going to go through all of them, and then we're going to compare them at the end of the video. We're going to go through the most obvious ones through to some slightly more obscure ones, and then we're going to compare them all. Maybe you haven't even considered some of these guys, but I think you're going to like this one. If you do, please do like the video. Please do subscribe if you're new around here as well. Without further ado, let's have a look at the first of the 6 midfield options that you could go for Game Week 3. Okay, the first one I want to talk about today is Josh Da Silva. I know a lot of you guys have spoken about him already. I know I've spoken about him a little bit already as well, just because he is so cheap. He's going to be the cheapest player on this list at 4.6 million. He was actually 4.5 million at the beginning of this week. Maybe a few of you caught him before the price rise, but he's certainly the best cheap option to go for. Out of all of those players under 5 million, I would say that Da Silva really is the standout. He is looking really good, looking really promising. He's already scored 2 goals. He's a good player. He's actually a very good player. People don't realise it because he didn't play in the Premier League last season very much due to injury. But in that promotion period for Brentford in that promotion season, he was arguably one of their best players, maybe even their best player. He really was so important, driving forward, making those dribbling runs and taking shots on. And we've seen him do that already, taking just 2 pot shots, and both of them ended up in goals. Now, fair enough, maybe he has been slightly lucky to have got 2 goals already. Let's be real, he is massively overperforming his expected goals, and that De Gea failure to save, you know, really wasn't too good. So Da Silva, just be aware that he's not going to continue the point scoring he has done so far. He is, out of all of the players in this list, the biggest overperformer. So we do expect that to go back to a little bit more normal. A few people probably think he's going to be rotated as well. I actually disagree with this. A few people saying, you know, Damsgaard is maybe going to come in and replace him. But Damsgaard is very much a winger/attacking midfielder. Da Silva is more of a box-to-box midfielder. So there's not really a like-for-like replacement there. And Da Silva, like I say, when he has been fit, he has been nailed on at Brentford. He really is that good. And I think when he returns to full fitness, because he's still not quite there, he's still not 100% yet, I think he could be a really cracking player and make an absolute mockery of this price tag. But word of warning, guys, don't expect him to score too many points, and don't play him every game week. This is not going to be a player you want to just leave in your first 11 and set and forget. He is a player you're probably going to want to rotate with some other players depending on the fixture. Next, we've got Martinelli. I think this is probably the standout option at 6.3 million. I think if you haven't got him already and you can afford to get him, he's probably the one I would go for, to be honest. We are going to do a full comparison at the end of the video of all of the players mentioned, but certainly Martinelli stands out immediately. Playing for Arsenal, seems pretty nailed on at the moment, and has these phenomenal fixtures, back-to-back fixtures against a newly promoted team. It's just definitely something that we're interested in, isn't it? So far, he has overperformed his expected goals. He's got about 0.93 expected goals and scored twice out of that, out of only 3 shots. But his chances have been a little bit higher quality than Da Silva's chances. So he is actually, you know, getting those good opportunities to score, and he's been quite clinical so far. But still, I don't know if he's going to continue to score at this rate. But I tell you what, looking at these fixtures, you wouldn't put past him completely. And expected assist is pretty good as well. He's been pretty creative as well, so expect some assists over the next few games as well. I think this is a really good pick at 6.3 million. He's, you know, such a bargain, probably one of the biggest bargains in FPL right now, even at 6.3 million. You know, you would get this player even at 7 million, I think, at the way he's currently playing. So yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on. Rodrigo is a difficult one. You'll see at the end of this video, he's actually the top statistically out of all of the players we mentioned in this video. He's 6.1 million. The difficulty with Rodrigo is that he plays against Chelsea next and then Brighton away after that. Even after that, the fixtures aren't amazing. Yes, Brentford away is kind of an okay fixture. You wouldn't call it a good fixture. And that Everton at home fixture in Game Week 5 is the only fixture over the next 4 where you kind of think, all right, yeah, that's a really nice one. But Rodrigo is looking really good because now Bamford is injured. he's going to be playing as a central striker. He has been playing as a central striker since that injury, which is very, very promising for a midfielder. You know, getting that midfielder who's playing out of position as a forward is just so nice. He's got 3 goals already in 2 games. He's going to be on penalties as well, which I think is a really important factor that you need to consider when picking those midfielders, I guess, particularly at those cheaper prices. To get penalty takers is just really, really nice. So yeah, Rodrigo looks among it all. He's taken so many shots. He's making chances as well for his teammates. You can see not only has he got 1.37 expected goals, but 0.78 expected assists, which is a decent amount across 2 games. So very nice. The one thing I would say about Rodrigo is that maybe he is overperforming a little bit just because of that one goal. I'm thinking of that one goal he scored last game week against Southampton, where it really was such a tap in. The ball was about to cross the line. It was going to cross the line whether he touched it or not, and he kind of tapped it in with a header. You know, completely open goal. The ball's about to cross the line anyway. He got the goal, of course. You know, that's what counts at the end. Stats count at the end. But I wonder if that's going to happen, you know, very, very rarely, to be fair. It's not something that happens too often, and that individual goal has not only added a goal to his tally, but it's also added a lot of expected goals to his tally as well. So I still do think he's a phenomenal pick, but I don't think he's quite as good as his performances have suggested so far. Still, you know, 6.1 million. You really can't go too wrong with that one, but I don't expect him to be performing at, you know, Salah or Haaland or Kane rates for the rest of the season. That's probably not going to happen, to be fair. Next up, Pascal Gross. We spoke about him a little bit on the Buy, Sell, Keeper, Void video earlier this week, but we'll just go over him again because I do think he is one of the better midfield picks. 5.6 million, so he is a little bit cheaper than your likes of your Martinellis and your Rodrigo. So if you are on a little bit of a stricter budget, maybe Pascal Gross possibly could be the guy for you. Another player on penalties, a player playing just behind the striker, really advanced position, which is really, really nice to see. And yeah, he's got 2 goals to show for it so far, a decent amount of expected goals, expected assists at 0.38 as well, so he is creating chances, 5 key passes to his teammates so far. So I do think that he has the potential to continue scoring points, particularly after this West Ham game, where his fixtures really do look good. Leeds at home, Fulham away, and then Leicester at home. And the fixtures keep going pretty well after that as well. So yeah, those Brighton players in general, to be fair, are players we might want to have a look at, maybe get in on Brighton somehow, particularly after this Game Week 3 fixture. And why not go 1 week early with Pascal Gross? He's done very well so far. I think he can continue. The penalties help a lot. The fact he's on set pieces helps a lot as well. So lots of things to like about Pascal Gross at the moment. Wilfried Zaha is the first of the 2 slightly more obscure ones. I think the 6th and final player I'm going to suggest will possibly surprise you, but we'll do Zaha first. I don't think this is too surprising. He did score in last game week against Liverpool, so that's always good. But what I want to say about Zaha is that statistically, he is performing very, very well. You know, only got 1 goal and no assists, no bonus points so far as well. But his expected goals is all the way up at 1.4. His expected assists is all the way up at 0.65. So these are really, really good statistics over a 2-game week period. 5 shots, 4 in the box, 3 big chances and 3 key passes. This is really, really nice. So yeah, the fact that he's played against 2 difficult teams so far, Arsenal and Liverpool, is probably, you know, made him look worse than he actually is. And maybe against some of the easier teams, he might perform even better. Remember, he is coming off the back of his best ever season last year. Crystal Palace are looking better and better as a team in general as well, I would say. And I just think that going into some better fixtures, it might be better. Now, Aston Villa at home is a good fixture, but after that, Man City away, Brentford at home, Newcastle away, they're still not great fixtures. I mean, they're better than the first 2, but they're still not great. And you do have to pay a premium price at 7 million. So that's the thing putting me off Zaha. The fixtures is just not ideal, is it? But we've got another penalty taker here. And I have to say, after game week 10, I believe, his fixtures really just look amazing. So from game week 10, Crystal Palace's fixtures are really good. So I don't know if it might be slightly early to go in on Zaha unless you are planning on keeping him for the long period and just accepting some frustrations along the way there. But so for 7 million, I think he's one of the better 7 million players. Maybe a little bit too expensive for what you guys are after though. So let's switch it up with a cheap one. Solly March, 5 million. Now, I know a lot of people have been asking for the best 5 million midfielder. I have to tell you the truth, guys. There's not too much going on at the 5 million mark. But if I had to pick one 5 million midfielder, you know, a direct Bailey replacement, I suppose, then Solly March would be the one I would go for. Just 1 assist so far, but his underlying stats are looking pretty good. So 0.79 expected goals, 0.58 expected assists. He's taking lots of shots. He's creating chances for his teammates as well. And he's unlucky to have not got a few more FPL points points so far this season. So yeah, he's playing at right wing back at the moment. I wonder if he could be potentially rotated with Tariq Lamptey at some point. I'm not exactly sure about that, but he's been playing very well so far, so it's difficult to write him off, particularly at 5 million. That really is a cheap price, but just be aware that when you're paying 5 million for a player, don't expect too much for them. This really is just a super budget player, and arguably a player you should be rotating in some of the more difficult games. For example, I don't think I'd play him against West Ham, but maybe against Leeds, Fulham and Leicester, he could go into your first 11. So with that said, let's compare those 6 players and see how they stack up against each other. So using the Opta statistics tool from Fantasy Football Hub, this is just a great tool that shows you all of the many different stats. I mean, this is just a snapshot of all of the things available on this Opta stats tool. It really is so good. And if you do want to go check it out, there is a link at the top of the description. Let's compare these players. So what I've done is I've gone for midfielders under 7 million, and I've displayed the stats per game. So per appearance for the player, these are the stats for them. And I've also put in the right-hand column here the expected points. Now, I know a few of you guys are going to be very, very mad at me saying, I don't want to see expected points. I want to see actual points. Actual points are what matter. But I have to say, for me personally, I do think that the points, using points as a metric, particularly after just 2 game weeks, doesn't really tell a very good picture, because over such a short period of time, players can get either very lucky or very unlucky during that, at those small sample sizes. And expected points says a bit more of the story. It kind of takes into account, expected goals, expected assists, how many shots a player is taking, how many key passes a player is making, and just rounds it up to see how many points a player was expected to score in that game, rather than what they ended up getting. So I just think that it is just a better way of doing this. So you can see that Rodrigo is the top of expected points. Overall, Rodrigo's stats are the best here. I mean, you would probably say he's pretty much top in most metrics here, which is very nice to see. Taking the most shots by a long shot, and high expected goals. Zaha is second there, which is pretty nice as well. 0.7 expected goals, which is top in that particular metric. So I mean, that's pretty good, to be fair. When you look at Zaha here, he looks like a really good option, but he is just that little bit too expensive, isn't he? Now, Pascal Gross is next, who has got pretty decent stats. Like, it's probably surprising that you're seeing that Pascal Gross is probably on paper looking a little bit better than Martinelli at the moment. I think one thing to consider is that the top 3 players in this list, Rodrigo, Zaha and Gross, are all on penalties. So that's just an interesting fact that you might want to consider. If you want to play, none of these players have taken penalties yet, so that's not impacted it on their stats so far, but a random penalty comes your way and you're pretty much laughing. But anyway, Martinelli next, a little bit more expensive than Gross, and has been doing very well, overperforming obviously a little bit. I think most of these players, other than Zaha and March, all of these players have been overperforming, but let's see how that works out in the longer term. But yeah, Martinelli looking pretty good as well. The good thing about Martinelli, and indeed all of the bottom 4, so Gross, Martinelli, March and De Silva, all of these 4 players have much better fixtures than Rodrigo and Zaha. So that is definitely something to consider as well. Yeah, March there as well. He obviously is not stacking up very well compared to the other players, but what do you expect for 5 million? To be fair, he's not that far behind the likes of Martinelli and Gross there. And De Silva is firmly at the bottom on expected points, and all of his stats are pretty low as well. Like we said, De Silva, we're really not expecting to keep up the points that he has done so far, and I don't think De Silva is really an option if you want to start him every game week. He's just not quite good enough as an FPL asset, and March is kind of teetering the edge of whether he's good enough as an FPL asset or not to start every single game week. So you can see here very clearly that we have Rodrigo and Zaha at the top. So they're the best picks, right? Well, I'm not so sure about that just because of those fixtures. So 2 things to take into consideration. Considering that all of these players, we don't know how they're going to perform over a slightly longer period. What I would say is that maybe create, some criteria of what you're kind of looking for. Are you going to hold a player for long term? Are you looking for that short term hit? Have you got any of these players already? And who can you afford? Are you willing to take a hit in order to get the right player? Now, I would say that the fact that Gross is in that middle of the Venn diagram in a way, where he takes penalties and he has good fixtures. He's the only player on this list who both has good fixtures and takes penalties. Maybe that means that Pascal Gross is the best option out of these 6. He's the one I'm the most interested in, probably, other than Martinelli. Martinelli, if you have him already, fantastic. If you don't have him, then Martinelli is probably the top pick, just because fixtures are phenomenal. 2 back-to-back, newly promoted teams, I guess, and you're playing for Arsenal as well, which is always very good. But don't write off the Brighton guys. And if you really do fancy Rodrigo and you fancy Chelsea to concede, then Rodrigo's probably going to be the player to score in that game. So overall, I would say that Pascal Gross, on paper, statistically, looks like possibly the best option there. Martinelli is up there as well, obviously. Rodrigo I like as well because he's slightly cheaper than Zaha and the fixtures are about as difficult as Zaha's as well. So yeah, I think overall, I think we have to say Rodrigo, Gross and Martinelli are the three standouts. Maybe Gross, just because he's the cheapest, might be the easiest one to go for. If you don't have Martinelli, get him. Rodrigo's worth a shout. And De Silva, if you really are working with a super tight budget or you're looking to switch your formation about with 2 transfers, then maybe De Silva is the one to go for. So yeah, lots of good options there. I don't think any of these 6 are the wrong option necessarily, other than maybe Zaha. Zaha is probably the one I would say I would be least likely to go for out of these 6 players. But there's some good options for you. And these, for me, are the top 6. Do let me know if you think there's any other players in that, 7 million or less midfielder price bracket that you think I've missed out on this list. But I do strongly feel like these are the top 6. But always really interested to see if you've got any alternative suggestions for us. Thank you so much for watching today. If you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. We've got a deadline stream tomorrow. Don't forget, there's loads of other content on this channel if you haven't watched it already. Loads of different stuff to do with transfers and my team personally and seeing what all the FPL experts are up to as well. Go check those videos out. Well worth a watch. And until then, I suppose I will see you on tomorrow's deadline stream. Bright and early, 1 hour before the deadline. Let's get it. Excited for Game Week 3. I hope you guys are too. I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.